Hey kiddos, welcome to Level 7. It's time for another episode of the Agents of Fandom podcast. I am your host, TJ Zwarych, ready to chat about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5. Thank you for everyone joining us today. We do not have any special guests joining us, but I am, of course, joined by my co-host and good friend, Sean Mott. The Metalcore Nerds, you're special, but you're not a guest. You're part of the show.
Thanks. That's fair. Yeah, a lot to talk about with this episode that I'm very excited to get into. And what an ending. What we finally get Ray Jelly, and then it's like, bam, gut punch right after. I was like, fucking Jesus, man. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. Happy to be here, as always.
This episode kind of, and of course, we'll dive into it, but this episode kind of starts slow and in the feels, and then it's just like, bam, bam, fast pace, fast pace, fast pace, fast pace. And then a nice calm ending that puts you back in the feels. And it was a really, really strong episode of television. I can't wait to chat about it with you. Before we do, I do want to know what you're watching. It'll probably be a quick episode of what you're watching today, since there is only two of us. And spoiler alert, I've been watching Star Wars Rebels. That's it.
First time?
No. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Okay, I was like, I think we talked about Star Wars.
Yeah.
I was like,
Rebels is my jam. That's my number one Star Wars anything. So it's a comfort show that I'm just subbing in place for Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I got into my Star Wars mode after watching all of Andor season 2. Wanted to watch Rogue One, then I rewatched the prequel trilogy. Sorry, not the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy. And then now I'm diving into Rebels, and as I'm watching Rebels, it's made me want to rewatch Clone Wars. It's just such a great show, and I know it so well, and I love it to have on in the background. And now I'm finally at Twilight of the Apprentice, Part 1, first part of the season finale of season 2, which is, to me, just the peakest of Star Wars. I know the peakest isn't a word, but you know what I mean. I had to overemphasize peak. Sean, what you been watching?
Oh man, well, obviously I'm watching Andor. You saying Rebels just made me think of Andor, because the last arc is pretty intertwined with Rebels in not in a direct way, but there was a reference. And obviously the events of what happens in Andor kind of leads right into something that happens in Rebels, which I thought was really cool. The ending of the last Andor episode is the only thing that's made me as emotional as a certain moment in Rebels in all of Star Wars. So kudos to Andor for that, because that's a high bar to reach in my perspective. But the ending of that last episode demolished me, absolutely crushed me, and subverted my expectations, because I thought Bix was going to die and they just made it worse. So thanks, Andor. Other than that, I have a new review on Agents of Fandom. Murderbot, the latest Apple TV series, stars Alexander Skarsgård, and he is a security robot that it's so funny because the premise is so stupid. The robot is literally just made to protect people, and it has a ton of weaponry built into its system, but it is a human-like android. But this specific android has hacked its module that's like controlled by the big corporation in this sci-fi futuristic world, and all he really wants to do with his time is watch soap operas. And he's like annoyed and disgusted by like humans and their emotions, because he doesn't have any, because he's a robot, even though he looks human. But then he ends up like saving one of them in the beginning, and then they have this like weird attachment to each other, and they both kind of learn from each other. It's a great show that isn't going to demand much of you as far as like emotions or like paying attention. I feel like it's a good palate cleanser show. If you need a good show you're just going to laugh at, it's like absurd and ridiculous, and there's some like brutal moments, but it kind of just adds to the ridiculousness and the silliness of what the show is. And I will say it is really fun to see Alexander Skarsgård play a role like this, because usually he's very stoic and heroic, and he plays like a Viking or something, or a vampire. This is like so opposite. He's so like he plays the straight man as he's like very awkward and very literal, kind of like Drax, if he was a robot and had zero emotions. That's what he plays in this, and so it's pretty good. Like it's hard because we've talked about how amazing this year of TV is. So it's like if I put it against all of the best TV series out there, it's not going to hold a candle. But it's a good watch, I guess, if that makes sense. But that comes out this Friday. I think the first 2 episodes come out Friday, and they're like 20-minute episodes, super fast. So if you're looking for something fun to watch and you like sci-fi, definitely check out Murderbot on Apple TV. And then I finally watched Mickey 17. Speaking of weirdo sci-fi partial comedies, the latest Bong Joon-ho movie that got delayed like a million times, that stars Robert Pattinson with a really weird accent. And I found it pretty good.
In a year of not like a ton of great movies, like obviously recently with Sinners and Thunderbolt, things are absolutely looking up, especially with Mission Impossible, Fantastic Four, Superman, a new Jurassic World that I've heard really good things about. So a lot of, I think, epic blockbusters on the horizon with potential that have potential to be really good, but not a great year of movies so far. And so with that being said, I still kind of feel like Mickey 17 is among my better movies of the year so far. Like definitely top 10, but maybe even top 5. And that's kind of thinking it as like a 7.5, 8 out of 10 kind of movie.
Yeah, exactly. It's well, I kind of figured it would be like that for me, but I mean, some movies that people didn't really love hit for different people. That's just the beauty of movies and art in general. But I didn't really see many people talking about it, even when it came out. There wasn't a lot of buzz behind it off the guy who just won a ton of Oscars with his last movie, and I was like, that's a little weird. Now I guess it makes sense, but it is that's also a very fun movie. Robert Pattinson, his weirdo accent is awesome, and Mark Ruffalo is a psycho in the best way in it, and Stephen Yeun is also a psycho in the best way in it. So it is a lot of fun. And then the last thing, I'm continuing my Lost, my first ever watch. I'm like halfway into season 3 at this point, and I totally understand. I think Severance took a lot of beats from the show because it's very similar in the way of you never really know what's going on. Like, what's going on currently, but the bigger mysteries are never fully explained yet. I mean, obviously, I'm in halfway through the series, so not everything should be explained by this point. But it keeps giving you little nuggets. But even as you get the nuggets, it asks more questions, and I love that. The story of it is engaging. It's just some of it that feels very dated, but I think that's a product of it being 1, network TV, and 2, being network TV in the mid 2000s. Some stuff just isn't going to look the greatest. Like some of the action is kind of silly. Some of the effects are kind of silly, but that's definitely because of the time, not because of what they intended to do. So I overlook those, and I'm like, it's not the show's fault. It's just what it had to be. But and ballsy show, not afraid to kill off people, and I respect that. And not even like a Game of Thrones way, more of in the later Walking Dead way, where you find to like really grasp onto these people, and then as soon as you start to like them, they die. And then when people that you've liked that have been there for so long, you think they might die, you really don't know if they're going to die or not. So it's been a cool journey. And by this time, I know people have talked about the ending. I don't even remember what the ending is anymore. So I'm happy about that. So I'm excited to see how I feel once I get there. So we'll see how that goes. But enjoying it so far. Lots of Lost.
Speaking of a Skarsgård and Murderbot, and speaking of some Andor, you can check out our interviews for Andor Season 2 with Stellan Skarsgård, Luthen Rael, Genevieve O'Reilly, Mon Mothma, as well as Kyle Solar, who is Cyril, and Denise Gao, who is Dedra. All up on the Agents of Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts. So when you are hitting the like button for us, which we please ask for you to do, help us battle that YouTube algorithm, get us in front of more eyes, build this community, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on our The Last of Us shows and our Andor shows and the Comic Corner and more. We got some fun trailers dropping this week. Superman, hopefully maybe some Ironheart. And so we'll be diving into some trailers this week as well. And so make sure you subscribe to the Agents Fandom on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find our review for Thunderbolts, as well as Sean's interview with the director, Jake Schreier, and my interview with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who plays Val, up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your pods. Follow us on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. Sean, there's only 2 episodes of The Last of Us remaining. Give me your spoiler-free 2/3 of the way through review of this season.
I'm really loving this season, honestly, even more than I enjoyed season 1, and I really like season 1. I don't know if it's because they've taken a lot more liberties with this season or not. I am just really loving what they're doing character-wise. And I've talked about this ad nauseum on this after show, and I've been very much trying to view the gaming and show experience as 2 totally different experiences, because they are, and the way you interact with them are completely different. And I think there's some things that both do better than the others. Like you can't really compare how immersed you are as you're playing the game. It's like an impossible thing to replicate. But I think what the show has done instead is really taken its time to further develop the characters involved in the story. And I think they've been doing that super, super well. I think Dina is leagues and above better than the game version. I don't even think the game version is bad at all. I think Dina is a very strong character in the game, but what they've done in this series is absolutely unreal. And I really like the changes they made with Ellie. I think, I don't know, like everything seems more human from a game that is very based on humanity. It's just everything seems more nuanced, everything's a build rather than it just being one singular thing. And I really enjoy that. And even as a game player, I've been really liking to see what those changes are compared to the game. And it's been cool to see how they have handled other pieces of the story, introducing them in different ways, because you can do different perspectives within a show that you can't do in a video game. You only get to see things through a certain perspective at any given point. So it's been a joy to see what they've done to change this and bring this to a bigger audience. And I think next week's episode, I think it's safe to say this is probably gonna be my favorite episode of maybe the series, if not probably up there. And I'm still so intrigued of how they're going to end this season. So far, love it. I think it's probably one of my favorite TV series of the year, and I've watched like 20 to 30 TV series this year. So if that says anything, it's in pretty high regard. Loving it, honestly. Like I can see some people's critiques with certain things, but when most of the people's critiques are, it's different, I'm like, okay, that's not even a real thing. That's not a real critique.
One of the
I don't know.
only critiques I've heard that I genuinely agree with is like, and I'll kind of flip this on its head in a second, but Ellie does not look 5 years older, and they do a 5 years older flash forward, but also I don't care. Like I honestly couldn't care less that she doesn't look 5 years older. And so it's like, I agree that she doesn't, but it also doesn't affect my viewing experience in any way. I remember probably like a full year ago, if not more now. I don't think the article ever actually made it out because the person just got busy and then didn't end up writing much anymore. But I remember there was a upcoming like breakout stars or like breakout stars of 2025 or of the next few years kind of thing. And one of the actors they put in was Isabela Merced, because she had been Dora, she was in a Transformers movie, but she wasn't really a star yet. And knowing what the role of Dina was upcoming and how she was going to play a big role in season 2, plus she's Hawk Girl in Superman, which is coming out in a few months. It was going to be a big year for Isabela Merced. But I don't think we anticipated just how much of a breakout star she would be. Like, I'm genuinely shocked every episode how just incredible she is. Just such a warmth to this performance that draws you in and makes you just want to do anything for this character, and just protect her at all costs. And so just truly a impeccable performance. And as you said, what based on the flashback at the end of this episode, what it's leading us into, obviously we won't spoil anything, but game players know that this could potentially lead into a fun little birthday scene that we have seen in the game. And at the same time, I am so excited for everyone to see this episode, because obviously, again, keeping it spoiler free, I'm not going to say anything, but I think there's a lot of stuff in this episode that is going to be unique and is going to be new. And so I'm really excited for fans, especially game players, to see this episode, because we've talked lots about how this hasn't been a 1-for-1 adaptation, and we are happy about that. But one of the best parts about season 1, I think, is like in episode 3, where it's a brand new story that has been alluded to in the game, but we don't get full pieces of it. Anytime we get to see new footage of like additional context for things, that's my favorite in any type of adaptation. Of, hey, we know you liked this, but we actually found a way to make it better. And so here's some added story beats that were in our heads, but never actually made it to the script at this time because we hadn't fully thought it through yet. Those are some of my favorite episodes in adaptations, from a video game to live action, or an animated show to live action, a comic book to animated, a comic book to live action, whatever it is. That's my all-time favorite thing when they do that. And speaking of something they did in season 1, especially at the beginning, that they kind of stopped doing, and I really wish they didn't, because I think they were some of the coolest parts of season 1, the cold opens, sometimes related to the episode at hand, sometimes related to the overarching story. And wow, did we get a hard-hitting one for this episode as well. Full spoilers for The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5. Spoiler warning, we are now diving in. This one was wild because the spores are a huge part of the video game. And they've been basically omitted throughout the story of The Last of Us so far until now. Sean, what are spores? And what did you think of this opening scene in The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5?
Oh man, so spores are basically so in the game it's there's no tendrils in the game. So there's a bunch of levels where the cordyceps fungus has infected and grown so much that spores emit into the air and you can't breathe them in, or you will become infected just by breathing them in. And there's moments where you're wearing masks, and usually when Ellie is with someone, she's also wearing a mask to either, if someone comes in and sees her, they're not freaked out, or if she's with someone else, she can hide the fact that she's immune. That's how actually she reveals to Dina that she's immune in the game. Her mask gets cracked, and then she's like, I'm immune. Which I think, again, we kind of talked about how they made the scene way more intense in the series than it was in the game. Dina was kind of just, and she joked about it earlier too in the game, and she was just like, you're a liar, stop messing with me. And then she realized it was real, whatever. But yeah, so now that I love how they've made it seem like the infected are evolving, and that this is like a new thing. I love how it's like built up to this. And what they hinted at the scene, which I'm not going to say, but game players know they hinted at something in this scene that I'm going to be writing an article about for Collider. And the foreshadowing for that was awesome. And I love that. And it adds this whole thing of these infected seem to be evolving to something bigger than they ever were in the game. And I'm wondering if we're going to see a kind of crescendo with that, if the thing they're hinting is the crescendo, but I don't think so. It's just like so many of these things seem like it's adding to something way bigger. So I'm excited about that, to see where that may lead. But what a cool, I love me a cold open. And this one was really rad, especially with, at the end you reveal that this woman had to seal like the death deal for her son. That's so brutal, because you feel like you're like, oh, it's probably like, what was it, like her husband or boyfriend or something? They're like, oh, sorry about your son. I was like, oh, not that that makes it any better, but it kind of does what this series in general does, and it just subverts expectations to make it seem more hard hitting or different than it has. But what a great scene. And yeah, and I loved the fact that they're like, here's the map, these two stairwells are collapsed in, which is such a game thing. When you're, and that's like it's like a funny game reference because it's not direct at all. But there's so many times when you're exploring, trying to, whether it's you're getting through a level or trying to, find supplies, ammo, whatever, you go up a staircase and it's collapsed, so I was like, that was like a nice little niche like reference. And they're like, yeah, this is the only way in. We sealed that shit off. So that was very, very cool and a very like attention to detail oriented thing. So kudos. Like again, I this show is like an awe to me, I think, of what they're pulling off. And each week I kind of get more enamored in what they're doing. But this is a really cool cold open. And things like this is what I've been talking about, then adding in more than what we've seen in the game. The game kind of, lets you in a little bit here and there with the WLF and the Seraphites and everything like that. And at this point in the game, we've seen barely any of this. So the fact that we have all this information already makes me so much excited for when we get to the big parts with that stuff. But good stuff. Good stuff.
And we do get to see quite a bit more of the war between the WLF and the Seraphites this episode. This was the episode to me that felt the most like, at least for this season, the most like the video game, because it was literally just, you're in the middle of a fucking war.
Yeah.
And you got to find your way through it. You got there's people on both sides that are going to try and kill you if they see you. Plus, oh yeah, there's zombies too.
Yep.
And we're just stuck in the middle of it, and you got to find your way through. And the good whole middle portion of this episode was just, hey, weave your way through this, weave your way through and see what happens. Before we get to the kind of crazy and chaos part, we talked about the slow, kind of calm start this episode has. And it's Ellie and Dina at the theater, and we just get to see them kind of being a couple in the early stages of being a couple and enjoying each other's presence. Ellie calls herself dumb, and Dina says, yeah, you're kind of dumb. And Ellie's like, no, I'm not dumb. And it's like, obviously I'm paraphrasing away. It was much more complicated than that, but it's fun. Yeah. Just getting to see them goof around and be together. And then Ellie makes her way through the theater, Sean, and she finds herself a little guitar, and the tears start flowing.
Dude, well, for one, shout out to this like set designer for this theater entirety, but the changes they made to like the theater stage, I thought it was so cool that it was like a full band setup, because you just kind of find a random guitar in the game and you do play the guitar and everything like that. But wow, and I saw someone point this out, the score that's playing while she finds the guitar is the same score or like a variation of the score of when they encounter the giraffes. So it's like a direct, correlation to like, this reminds me of Joel. And yeah, and the sound design of the guitar and how it would sound in like a theater setting like that was unreal. I was so like, wow, that sounds so good. And yeah, when she picked up that guitar and started playing Future Days, I was like, I thought we were going to go to a flashback there, because I think that's what happens in the game is you play the guitar and then it goes into a flashback.
Just a tease.
Just a tease, which I was fine with. But what you see on Bella Ramsey's face when she has this moment of like realizing how much Joel meant to her, and it was almost like her snapping of like, why am I here? Oh yeah, this is why I'm here. And her face went to like immediate rage. And I love again, we've talked about that before. Like she is, and as we see in the end of this episode, she is just as rageful as she is in the game. It's just more nuanced this way. She's put up a mask. She's trying to cope with her grief in different ways. She's found this love that's the love has built up more than it did in the game. There's been more time with that. Even if they weren't together, they still had those feelings, and there was more time for those feelings to grow before they finally made it quote unquote official, whatever official means when you live in an apocalypse, you know. And it's been cool to see her have like, and like what we talked about with Dina being such, and Isabela Merced being incredible and adding so much to this character, is that she's, and more so than I felt ever in the game, is that it feels like she has a replacement. A replacement is probably maybe substitute for Joel. Like she has a partner in this life that she had with Joel, that she lost. She probably thought she would never have again, but I think she's sort of realizing she does. And now you kind of see that conflict that's going to happen between, and they talk about their future together and how excited they are for that future together. And I think that's going to make a way more interesting conflict. And I think it makes her being excited to be a dad, as she proclaimed last episode, is that now she's going to have to choose between her future and her revenge. And I love that. I love that so much. And this scene like was the beginning of that, of you saw them being happy, joking around with each other, playing to each other's strengths a little bit. It's kind of like what I talked about last episode. It's like, because I've seen some people be like, oh, they're making Ellie kind of dumb and like Dina's the only smart one. And I was like, but when they get into stuff with Infected, Ellie takes lead and Dina follows. And I was like, it's like they both play to each other's strengths, which I think is probably the best thing you can do when you're a
field leader, and Dina will make the plan, and Ellie leads the plan. Once the plan is actually being enacted, yes, Ellie's the one you want in charge.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. But yeah,
I just remember there was one episode of an Avengers cartoon I remember watching growing up where this new Avengers team could, like, the original Avengers, something happened to them. Everybody thought they were dead, but they were in another dimension or something. And so they assemble a new Avengers, and the team couldn't figure out who wanted to lead between Black Panther and Captain Marvel. And the two of them just kept continuously butting heads, and eventually just came to the conclusion that Black Panther will plan the missions and is the, I don't remember what his term was, but then Captain Marvel's the field general. Like when they are actually trying to save the day and enacting the missions, Captain Marvel is in charge. When they are deciding what best to do for the team on a day-to-day basis, it's Black Panther. And I just thought that's kind of how I think of Dina and Ellie as well.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And yeah, I just can't get over how amazing the theater looks. Like, just I want to know where they filmed that, because it has to be just like an actual theater that they kind of probably, you know, made to look like it survived the apocalypse. But that, I know they filmed, I think, in Vancouver, I think. So it's probably somewhere in Vancouver, I would imagine. But that place is gorgeous. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
I do enjoy too how, like, just again going back to how great of a performance Isabela Merced is giving, when they kind of have the moment of Ellie being like, damn it, why did I even bring you? And then she kind of starts breaking down, but then snaps into anger mode of like, I didn't even tell you why I got my first kill. Like, this is why this means so much to me. Not only do I want to be here and supporting you because I know how important it is, I don't just know how important it is, I get how important it is. I feel how important it is. And there's no chance in hell I'm going to be leaving your side for this. And it's such a great performance. It's so powerful. And I love how good both of them can kind of just snap back into these different intense emotions so quickly. From Dina at that moment, and Ellie, when, like you talked about with the guitar, how she starts singing Future Days by Pearl Jam which again, no one's ever going to be Ashley Johnson because Ashley Johnson's just this incredible singer in general. But I actually really love Bella Ramsey's voice as Ellie when she starts singing. And we start feeling emotional. She starts feeling emotional, but it's almost like we've all kind of had this moment with something where you've had this painful event in your life and you try and do something that reminds you of that. And you go, oh, I'm not quite ready to do that yet. Actually, I'm not actually ready to revisit that. It feels a little bit too fresh right now. And you feel that with her. And then as she's processing why it's fresh, like you said, she remembers why. She remembers she's there for revenge. And you just see this immediate angry shift to the character. And she puts the guitar down and she gets back to the mission. I love seeing that through both of them emotionally at the beginning of the episode and then physically throughout their story as the episode goes on, because that as soon as they get out of the theater, they're pushing through Seattle. They're going right through the midst of the war. We see the wolves in action. We see the Seraphites in action doing some crazy, terrible, nasty shit. They just love stringing people up and absolutely gutting them. And it's terrifying.
Yep.
And then to make matters worse, we run into some stalkers. If being in the middle of this war wasn't bad enough, we still got zombies. If zombies weren't bad enough, Sean, we have new evolved zombies that think, that are smart, that creep quietly and quickly while having brain capacity similar to a human. Absolutely terrifying shit. And then bang! Who saves the day? Jesse is here. Tommy's in Seattle. The gang's getting all back together.
Yeah, I think I've talked about it too. Like as I was replaying the game, anytime I got to a part with stalkers, I'm like, damn it, these things suck so bad because you can't sneak because they sneak too, and then you go and try and take one out, and then the other 2 or 3 just like pounce on you and take you out. And I saw the one, and I love how they're strategizing. Like, okay, I know what to do. We can take it 2-on-1, no problem. And then they see the 2, and then it's like 7 of them, and I'm like, oh my god! I was like, they're fucked. I was like, there's no way. I was like, you could never. What are they gonna do? So that was like a smart move of her, going into the closed off area to protect Dina. But yeah, as soon as stuff was getting too bad, I was like, oh, Jesse or Tommy's going to show up. And I kind of figured Jesse too, because it's kind of similar into the game where Jesse comes in and saves the day. But I believe Ellie is dealing with like wolves, like sneaking through Seattle and goes through a pack of like wolves patrolling the area. And Jesse comes and helps out. And yeah, what a tense scene. Just the stalker tearing back the chain link fence and stuff. I was like, Jesus, I don't know what's gonna happen, because it's when you've played the game and you kind of know how the story's gonna go, you don't think they're gonna kill off Dina, but like part in your mind, I'm like, are they gonna kill off Dina? And I love that it's kind of like the show's kind of messing probably with us as game players of being like, would they change it that much? It would kind of ruin some things that happen later, but still the fact that they kind of catch you in these moments and you're like, oh, wait, what? Are they gonna? But great save from Jesse. And moving a little forward, I love how pissed he is that they left. And even when Ellie tries to fight back and is like, we had it under control. And then he's like, until what? And she's like, until we didn't. And I was like, duh. And it's so in line of what this version of the character has been. He's kind of the Boy Scout, the next in line to rule over Jackson and everything like that. So him to come in and be like that makes so much sense. And we did talk last week of Jesse and Tommy. If they do come, what would make more sense? And it does make more sense that they would come after them after they left to try and protect them, save them, what so have you. And there was a line in episode 3 where Ellie is talking to Tommy and they're kind of like, hey, we have to go get them. And Ellie's like, Joel would have done the same thing. And Tommy says something. He's like, no, Joel wouldn't. Joel wouldn't do something for revenge. He would do something to avenge you, though, as in like save you, as we've seen that he did. And that's kind of what Tommy is doing. He's not doing this to get revenge for Joel. He's doing this to save Ellie, because that's what Joel would want to do. And it's probably what he wants to do. Like, obviously, he has a lot of love for Ellie. And just like that subtle thing, like, it's wild to me that people are saying they ruined Tommy's character because he should have left and got revenge for Joel. It's like, this story isn't about revenge. It's not. It's about love and the lengths you'll do to protect or do what you think is right for love. And it's like, does everyone not remember how the story concludes? The whole point is that revenge does nothing. It does nothing to help the loss that you've had. It does nothing. It just makes things worse, and you are perpetuating that loss onto someone else. So when I see people, they're like, oh, they should be more revenge filled. And I'm like, no, that's not real. It's not how things are. That's not how humans think. They don't just think, I'm going to go on a murder spree. They, they may think it, but they're not going to do it. Even if it's in a world like this, there is much more nuance and more emotions that come with you as this thing is happening. And that's why I've loved what they've done with pretty much all of these characters, because to me it feels more rooted in what grief is really like. It's like a wave. Some days you're happy, some days you're sad, some days you're angry, some days you feel nothing. And I think what they've implemented, especially in with Ellie's character, I think has been really great. But it was cool to see Jesse come back, because I wasn't sure. I figured it was going to happen, that him and Tommy were going to get into the mix of things, but I wasn't sure where. So I'm happy it happened now, because I feel like if it happened in like the last episode, it might feel too late, I guess, if that makes any sense. So I'm glad it happened now.
Remind me, because I don't want to accidentally spoil anything. I know we do get the point where Jesse essentially says, just like the game, even though they come in at a different part, that like Tommy and Jesse split up, and that's why they're not together right now. Jesse comes in hot. He's angry that they left. Has he discussed their motivations and if they originally wanted to leave and follow Ellie's plan or not? And has he discussed his relationship status with Dina at all?
No. Really the only thing where it was like, we're going to get back to the theater, meet up with Tommy, and go home. And Ellie was kind of like, no. And but then that's when they were like dealing with the Seraphites, so it kind of that ended there, but nothing further than that. That was really it.
We take them through all the war, and along the way, Ellie gets her lead. She knows how to get to Nora. She says, look, you stay here with Dina. Dina, get some rest. This has been a traumatic day. Jesse, look after your baby mama, who you don't know is your baby mama at this point. And I'm going to go take out Nora, who is part of Abby's team, who we meet in the first episode. And this is when the spores come back into play. She tracks her down, and instead of just straight up killing her, she lets the spores infect her. And Nora fully comes clean about everything Joel did. She gives the full recap. She gives the full explanation. And what does Ellie say to her? I know. And bam. Bullet through the head. What did you think of the Nora chase down? How it all went down? What portions of it were like the game and what portions were not?
Oh, that's just one correction. Don't want to be that guy, but Dina gets shot with an arrow in the game.
Yes,
by the Seraphites after they witness someone get strung up and disemboweled, which was wild. It's much different to see it in like a like a computer animated video game that does look very realistic, but to see it with human actors, and it was brutal. And to see the action, we did see some disemboweled last episode, but to see it actually happen, brutal. And yeah, that was a big difference from the game, because Ellie or Dina stays back with Jesse and Ellie goes out by herself. And this one, after they meet up, they go into the park, which is where the Seraphites are, and that's why the WLF won't follow, because they don't want none of that smoke. And Dina gets shot in the leg, which is shocking. Again, that's like a new thing to the series. I was like, oh no. And then he's like, get her out of here, and they leave. And then as she gets through, she finds the way to the hospital, and then sneaks right in. But as far as the Nora interaction, the beginning of it is pretty much line for line recreation of the game. And the chasing through the hospital is very similar. You getting shot at by multiple WLF soldiers, also very similar. And then where it really changes is when they get to the final like confrontation. And seeing Ellie kind of discover spores was really cool. And the design, which I'm guessing is probably VFX, of how they kind of with like the infected dude stuck to the wall and breathing, and you just see the spores, like that was wild. And really, really cool to see how they handle that in this series. And I think they showed the door of where a certain thing happens that's going to happen in season 3 that I alluded to earlier. Game players know. Non-game players, don't worry about it. You'll see when next season comes out. But then the face-off, it was cool that she turned on the light that made it red. I thought that was like a nice little dramatic addition. But it's a similar conversation they have where Nora's like, well, you killed us both. Good job. And then realizes that Ellie's immune and that she's the immune girl. And I think in the game she says something like, he killed all those people, but doesn't get into specifics, which you feel like she kind of would. So I'm kind of glad they changed that. But the big change is that I'm pretty sure at this point Ellie doesn't know like why Abby came after Joel. I think at this point she just figures that it was because he took away the cure, and that's the reason. And I don't think she knows that Joel killed her dad. But her saying, I know, I was like, oh shit. I was like, oh, what? And it makes her scarier for sure, because she's like, I don't care. And it kind of adds to what Dina said earlier. She's like, I saw, my family get killed, but if I would have saw that happened in front of me, I would have hunted them down until I died, basically. And Nora even saying, well, she kind of went back on it. She's like, you shouldn't have seen what you saw. No one deserves that, which is a nice added touch too. But the line, that little bitch got me deserved, is from the game. But yeah, I almost, because in the game it's a little more brutal because it makes you hit a button to strike Nora. Kind of like how when you go to shoot the doctor at the end, it makes you shoot the doctor. Like you have no choice, but you have to physically press the button to make it happen. So it makes you like repeatedly hit square to hit Nora with a pipe. It's still a pipe. And so that part was a little more brutal, but I don't think that's the point. I think the point was it finally seeing full on Rage Ellie, which in my mind we saw for sure. And amazingly acted from both sides. It's crazy because we've only seen Nora in like what 2-3 other scenes in this whole series, and that was like 4 episodes ago.
Yeah.
But what an incredible performance, even in just that 2 minutes or whatever it was. Just like very, very good stuff. So for me, it was a win. Very impactful. But I don't think you can recreate that, like having to hit a button to beat a human being with a pipe. I don't know how they would have done it to make it as impactful as that. I don't know. I have no answer for that. So it's not even like a complaint. It's more of just a straight on comparison, I guess. But yeah, very, very cool. And I love that it's like she's this is one thing I love about the series, that in the game you're kind of this, and even when you play as Joel for a majority of the first game, when you play as Ellie almost feels like two different characters compared to game 1 and game 2. And it's mostly because she's just like full rage for game 2. And like I said, this season has done a better job in that regard of like showing the complex emotions when it comes to something as traumatic as this. But I love that Ellie feels like the same person, and they didn't make her to be some like insanely near invincible Rambo who kills 20, like when you go to Seattle, you kill so many people, but that's because you have to play a game and you have to go through these motions of like going through a game. But if you saw like a person in this small girl or even any dude, and you see them mow through like stealthily through like 30, 40 people, that's pretty unbelievable. Because they were like, I saw some people being like, well, you have to go through so much to get to that part with Nora in the hospital. And I'm like, yeah, would you have believed it if you saw someone go through a hospital and just stealth killed like 30 people? Like, it doesn't really make any sense. So I'm glad that they've like used her size to like an advantage of her sneaking through little holes that, like a soldier thought a rodent went through or something. That's been very smartly done in my opinion, because anyway else it just seems unrealistic. Like even thinking about Joel when he killed, what was it, like 17
You would
people
have
or
needed
something,
some
or
training
18 people?
montages from like not just that one fight scene, but like you would have needed like, oh, what's wrong, buddy? Sorry, my dog's going crazy. My dog was going crazy. He wanted to go on the ground and his hair got caught. I apologize, but we would have needed like a full on. All right, Ellie with the guns, Ellie with some bows and arrow, Ellie fight sequences, push-ups, weightlifting. Like, give us like a scene like that if we were gonna do the whole Rambo thing.
Yeah. And I don't even know if that would have made any sense either. I don't know if any number of training montages could have made sense for any character to come. Like even if
what that would remind me of if we got the training montages. The movie Never Back Down.
I was hoping
nice little call back to our Beyond Invincible episodes. If you weren't watching our Invincible breakdowns, I apologize because the joke is from those and it won't hit without context. But continue. I apologize.
No, that was great. I mean, that was really it. I like how they're making it from a game that is extremely realistic. And even when you look through the way they make the game, even from like a technical standpoint, if you watch Grounded Part 2, the making of The Last of Us Part 2, they show you how they make stuff. And it's like they take like bones, not like someone's actual bones, but just bones, and smash them so the animation looks like it's actually how humans' bones would smash. They put fake blood in dirt so it looks like how actually blood would pool in dirt and stuff like that, in footprints. So coming from a game like that goes through all these extra miles to make it seem as realistic as possible, to then make it more realistic when you're making it a live action thing is just incredible. And it kind of bums me out that some people are like missing that just because they can't like separate the two. I guess that's the only thing I can think of, is people have a hard time separating the game from an adaptation. And I maybe it's because I've been listening to the podcast too of them explaining it, where it's like, we had to do this because it was a video game, and we did this because it is a series, and they're kind of further acknowledging why they made these changes and stuff like that. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know. I just feel like some people are so stuck in game mode they can't like let it go for some reason, and it bums me out because I think they're totally missing out on an incredible adaptation that is doing some amazing things. But I don't know.
The episode concludes with the return of Pedro Pascal as Joel Miller, as Ellie is in a little flashback, and he says how the line that I began the episode with, "Hey kiddo," and it's just, man, Pedro is just such a good dad-looking character. Like, he just exudes love for his child at all times, and it gets you excited for kind of the tease that, yeah, we're gonna get some more Pedro next episode. Any final thoughts on episode 5, theories or hopes for episode 6? Feel free to take it in either direction you want.
Yeah, so after the episode ended, after it ended in such a way like that, which I thought was that's a great TV ending, 1,000%. To go through something that's so rage filled and anger and revenge, and then you see this nice moment of like we finally get to see Joel again. It's the first time since episode 2, and the last time we saw him was pretty bad, pretty bad. So that was like a nice. And then I was like, oh, okay, here we go. And then they show, after the episode concludes, they show a trailer of next week's episode, and that made me emotional in itself. The minute-long teaser or whatever it is. So yeah, I think next episode is going to completely and utterly ruin me. I am fully guessing it's a full flashback episode, and we're going to see a lot of the time gap between season 1 and season 2 filled in with what happened between Joel and Ellie. And I am absolutely excited to see it, but I am definitely going to be a sobbing mess through probably the entirety of it. So looking
on
forward
that
to
note, if going and putting you into theory mode here, if you think episode 6 is almost going to be in its entirety a flashback episode, all that leaves us left is one final episode, the season finale, episode 7 before season 3. Where do you think we kind of wind up here post flashback?
The only thing I'm guessing we're going to the aquarium, where
I love that there's so many landmarks like that where you can just be like, we're going to the theater, we're going to the aquarium, where a game player will know, okay, that's what you're thinking. And somebody who's never watched will just be like,
what?
You're going golfing? What do you mean?
Yeah, totally. And I'll leave it at that. I think we're going to the theater, and I think we'll wind up back at the theater. If that well, I think we'll start at the theater, because I'm interested to see how they deal with, because after this moment in the game, Ellie is pretty shook, or starts to be shook from what she does or what she's doing in her path for revenge. And that's a very important part. So I'm interested to see how they'll handle that. The only thing I'm wondering about is, where does Manny come into this? Because I think at this point in the game, Manny's already been taken care of. I think. So that's what I'm wondering, because they teased him first. So I wonder if that was like oh, he's up first kind of thing. But obviously that's not the case, as we've seen as Nora was the first victim. So I'm wondering about that. That's something I'm very curious to see how that kind of fits in. And I've been told that it ends in a very unexpected way. I think I may know how it is now, but I don't want to say it because it'll ruin things for people who haven't played the game. And I don't want to ruin it for myself. I want to just see if it comes true, because I was watching through. I've been replaying it myself. I haven't finished all of part 2, but obviously this season isn't going to finish all of part 2 either. But I watched a scene from a later part in the game, and I was like, interesting. It made me kind of rethink things, thinking they might kind of mash some stuff together, maybe. So I'm very interested to see how the finale goes. The only thing I think a critique people have been, I've started people saying, people think this season has been rushed. And I think that's mostly a gameplay thing too, because it does skip over some things in the game, but narratively, I don't think they're skipping over really anything. I think they're just adding more, at least character wise. As far as plot, they're taking like the big plot points, kind of keeping them in and going from there, and filling in the gaps a little differently than the game, which is totally fine. I wouldn't have been mad if the season was 10 episodes just so we could get more. And that's just me being selfish, because I would have taken more. But I was worried about this feeling rushed. But at this point, it doesn't feel rushed to me, I guess. Yeah. because I feel like they've taken more time with things. Again, it's just gameplay stuff. Like if you'd have went through a bunch of buildings, had to kill a bunch of WLF soldiers, one would have felt pretty unrealistic. Two, it's not really necessary. So, yeah, I guess that's my theory. I think they're gonna go to the aquarium. It'll probably end in the theater, maybe. And I just don't know the manning of it all. I don't know how that factors in. So interested to see how that comes into play, I guess.
I think Braden makes a good point for why the season could be a little bit longer, and that's because when there's, in the day and age of how TV is now, especially when there's some heavy VFX like this one, it's not usually a year or 9 months between seasons. It's not you start a season in September, end it in April, May, and start up the next one for September. Like it's 2 years, hopefully not 3, but you're usually looking at least 2. And from season 1 to 2, because season 1 was the entirety of one game, it had an end point. And so that big gap doesn't actually feel like that big of a gap because it's a new story starting up now. Whereas this one, it may feel like a pretty darn big gap unless they actually did. I haven't looked into the filming schedules and stuff, but unless they like work to do these seasons back to back and, season 3 is already being worked on kind of thing, it's probably going to be 2 years, and that might feel like a big wait when it's it's an end to the story they're telling for now, but it's not the end point like season 1 and the first game were.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I think I can kind of compare it to Severance in a way, where Severance season 1, and that had to deal with writer strike and actor strikes too, why it took 3 years for that season 2 to happen. But even regardless, it probably would have taken 2 at the very least for that one to come out. And that one was a very cliffhangery type thing. So I think it can work. And I'm sure I haven't even watched House of the Dragon, to be honest. I did like Game of Thrones, but I just haven't got into House of the Dragon. And I'm guessing it has to be like that too. Like you're not getting a House of Dragon season every year. It's like every other year. And I don't think they filmed this back to back. I'm pretty sure I saw Caitlin Deaver or Isabela Merced, one of the two, say they don't think they're going to start filming until next year. So probably 2 years. This was probably going to be a pretty long wait. And yeah, I guess I am interested to see how people will do that. But I don't think they could have covered all of it in, like, even if it was 10 episodes. That's so much. That I feel like that would have been rushed. Like it would have been really hard to make that work in one season of TV, even if it got to like the 2/3 conclusion of the game, if that makes sense for game players out there, because there is kind of like a back half of it that's related but unrelated time wise. I don't think they could have fit it in one season. I really don't. I think it would have been very, very hard to make that happen. Too much to do.
I need to preface this. And yeah, Braden, great point though. Like, bring back when TV seasons were 20 plus episodes as opposed to
network TV, baby.
Do miss that 100%. But having said that, I think we need to normalize. And again, I need to preface this with saying I'm an idiot and I have no idea how TV is made. And so if this wouldn't work, it wouldn't work. Other people have schedules. They have things they got to fit in. Team members work on more than one thing. And so it might not work. I get it. But especially, it's even more so for shows like Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Avatar: The Last Airbender in live action. When you're filming with kids, just don't stop filming. Do everything. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're done season 1 and marketing is going to start pushing it with trailers and stuff like that. Well, let's already be on season 2 so that we can even if we're not releasing them at as fast of a pace, and it'll take lots of edits and CGI work and things like that, and it's still coming out a year or 2 gap in between seasons. Let's get this all in here so it doesn't seem like totally different people as when they come in 2, 3, 4 years later kind of thing. Normalize filming when you have a multi-season plan. Normalize filming multiple seasons at once. And I'm happy that Avatar: The Last Airbender announced season for live action at Netflix. They announced season 2 and 3 at the exact same time and said, like, we're just going to go into this. I'm happy they did, because, like, when they started filming season 1 of Percy Jackson and the Olympians, which I really like this show and I can't wait for the future of it. If I'm not mistaken, Walker Scoble was like 5'5", and now the dude's like 6 feet tall. And so, which when you're playing a Greek demigod, I think you can play into that and it can work. But normalize filming these types of things all together, all at once, so that we don't have to have these big mega gaps. But again, I don't know how budgets work and production timeline work and things like that. But I hate when I'm okay with seasons taking a long time. I hate when they don't start filming for a long time, is essentially what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I've seen shows get into the habit of being the opposite. Like, obviously, Daredevil Born Again, season 1 was coming out. They were already filming season 2.
Yes.
I'm like, yes, cool, awesome. Same with like Paradise. Paradise was shooting season 2 like a few weeks after season 1 was done. And I was like,
yeah, the second it got greenlit, they were like, all right, let's go.
You know, The Bear is the best example. There's been a season out every year, strike or no strike. There's been a season out every year since it started. Interested to see how that happens after this season, especially, you know, like the main stars of that are everywhere. So I feel like that's going to become a harder thing. But I feel like they're kind of in the back half of that, where I don't think this will be the last season, because I feel like they would have said that and it comes out in like a month. Maybe not. I don't know. The release of that show still boggles my mind. I can't believe one of the most prestigious TV shows, they drop it once. It absolutely boggles my mind. Anyway, I would love if Severance was filming right now, but they are not. I don't think there's a production date like even announced. They're just like, it won't take 3 years this time. Great, but I wish you were filming like now, instead of any other time. Like, I'm totally with you. I wish people kind of had their scheduling down a little better, where we don't have to wait 2-3 years for these seasons to come out anymore, especially these big TV shows that are so massive. Like, you'd figured they'd want to, like The Pit. The Pit's gonna come out every year, and they've even said that, like, that's our goal every year. Obviously, that one probably takes a little less as far as like VFX work and stuff, but I know they do a lot of practical things that I'm sure take a lot of time to make and implement and everything like that too. But still, it's like, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, we're probably gonna film next year. I was like, next year? What? Why? Why?
Thankfully, there is a lot of really good television coming out to keep us satiated. So in addition to our The Last of Us breakdowns every Monday, we got the Andor breakdowns for the final 3 episodes coming this Wednesday. We have the Comic Corner every Thursday. There's going to be some trailers dropping this week, so we will have a trailer breakdown show, maybe some Superman, hopefully some Ironhearts. I don't know about that one. I just kind of am hoping above all else that we get one this week. So we'll chat about those. We got Comic Corner on Thursday. We got some more interviews dropping with some more comic creators over the next few days and weeks as well. And then we, of course, will be talking about Ironhearts when it does come out in, what, a month, 2 months from now?
I think less than a month.
Less than a month, yeah. So we'll be chatting Ironhearts as soon as it starts dropping on Disney+. If there are more shows you want us to cover, let us know. We've had some requests to dive into Stranger Things, speaking of shows that have massive gaps between seasons. So we're working on some Stranger Things podcast potentially. But if you want to hear us talk about The Bear, we'll talk about The Bear. Things like Invincible and what was the end? Severance weren't originally on our show schedule, but we put them on because of popular demand. So thank you so much for tuning in today, everyone. Check out our Andor interviews with the cast, our Thunderbolts interview with cast and director, and up on the Agents Fandom YouTube page and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on socials at Agents Fandom on TikTok and Twitter, Agents of Fandom everywhere else. And we will see you next time, everyone. On behalf of, no! Not yet. Sean, where can the people find you on socials and where can they find your work? And then we'll get out of here.
No. One more thing. You can go to metalcorners.com where you can check out all the latest podcast episodes. I have a really cool one coming next week with this band Thornhill. If you haven't listened to Thornhill, check them out. They're super, super sick. If you're like a Deftones fan, I would check them out. They're very good. And so I had a nice little conversation with them about TV shows from this year. You wouldn't believe it. And you can check out my work, collider.com. Have a nice Mobland article right now because it originally was a Ray Donovan spinoff show. So if you want to read about that, that's up there. I have, like I talked about, another Last of Us coming out. I have one coming up about Peacemaker Season 2. The trailer just dropped, so have a nice little thing to talk about from
another
that.
show we will be covering here on the podcast.
Of course, why wouldn't you? And got some reviews coming for Agents of Fandom. Have a few up there already. So, like I said, Murderbot, go read that review, see if it'd be something you'd be into. And yeah, that's about it. At Metal Corners, everywhere on socials. Find me there.
I don't know what's coming in the future from Sean and Agents Fandom, but I do know that I got a text today and said, wow, I am so thankful how much stuff Sean is willing to cover. So I do know that a lot more Sean content is coming to agentsfandom.com in the future. Stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. We will see you next time on behalf of myself and Sean. Peace.